Hello, world. This is Alex Hoffman from the Too Much Effing Perspective podcast. We have expanded our horizons, at least geographically. Welcome to Quick Taps, short episodes with short stories for short attention spans. Our theme today, sexy versus sexist. Spinal Tap moments where artists who just so happen to be female had to deal with a-holes who just so happen to be male. Given recent events, it seems like this theme applies to politics as well. Our first story comes from Tyler Simone Moulton from the band Lesibu Grand, who earlier this year released their album Triggered on the Killed Rockstars record label. We asked Tyler flat out if, as a musician, she's ever experienced sexism.
Never. It's never happened one time. Obviously, that was sarcasm. Yes, unfortunately, that does happen as being a woman who is in a predominantly male-dominated space. Talking to the sound guys, if it's a male sound person, they're more likely to go up to one of my bandmates rather than come to me when it has to do with my vocal, which I find comical. And I'm just like, well, I do know a little bit of something about sound and music, so you guys can ask me questions too. But it's just mainly stuff like that, small things that I just shrug off and I don't really let it deter me. But it is kind of interesting that even in 2024, it's shocking to guys that women can play music too, or sing, or be knowledgeable.
Yeah, shocking is the operative word. Our next story comes from actress Dina Spivey Waters, who objected to being objectified on a movie set, only to be objectified just a bit more.
I worked in the 90s, so it was a different time. So you always kind of had to handle it in kind of a gentle way. I was doing a film, and I don't want to say which one, but we were scantily clad, let's say that. And it was a comedy. But one of the crew members was like, nice ass. And I was like, oh, okay, thank you. Then I was kind of complaining to the set PA, and he's like, well, you got to tell the producer, you got to say something. And I was like, oh, I don't really want to. It made me uncomfortable, but somehow I ended up in the producer's trailer, and he was like, so who was it? And I was like, I don't really want to say. I don't remember. I didn't want to get anyone in trouble, even though he was intentionally being crude and trying to make me uncomfortable. So I was like, if this was like Last Exit to Brooklyn, I would take those feelings and put it into my character and be like, yeah, I'm going to be so hurt and use that raw emotion. But because it's a comedy, I just feel like, I shouldn't really be uncomfortable on a set. And so I just want to keep it happy, and I'm doing this for you. I just want to have a happy set and la la la, because I want it to be funny and good. And he was like, oh, okay. Yeah, of course, I get it. I'll say something to the crew. And then as I leave, he goes, nice ass. And I was like, he's like, just want to make sure you kept your sense of humor. Oh, thank you.
And our final harrowing story comes from the recording artist Kandle, who recently released a 12-song album entitled Danger to Dream. Kandle tells us that sometimes it's even dangerous to be a woman at the merchandise stand at your own gig.
I was at the merch table after a show, and these frat bros came up to me, and they were like, we're going to a party, you should come. I'm like, oh, that's so nice, but no, I have to stay here at the venue. And they're like, you should come. I'm like, no, thanks, but thanks for coming out. And they're like, no, you're coming. And they pick me up over their shoulder, like firemen carry me, and start walking through the crowd, through the whole venue with me screaming and kicking and begging for help. And there's like a pack of them. And security rushes over, my bass player comes over, punches in the face, and it turns into a full club brawl of these jocks trying to kidnap me to go to this party. And really, in the end, my bass player saved my life, which I'm very grateful for. Close kidnapping encounter.
I'm going to give that a 2-word review. Not cool. Listeners, We realize these stories aren't the funniest Spinal Tap moments that we've ever shared, but the film This Is Spinal Tap does point a finger at the sexism that's inherent in rock music and the music business when Nigel Tufnell, Spinal Tap's guitar player, gets confused by objections to the cover of their album Smell the Glove, and in the process conflates sexy and sexist. Let's hear it.
They're not going to release the album because they have decided that the cover is sexist.
Well, so what?
Yeah.
But what's wrong with being sexy? I mean, there's no...
Sexist.
Okay, listen, I want...
Oh, Nigel. Well, we hope you in some way enjoyed this edition of TMEP Show Quick Taps. Please follow, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Tune in next week when my co-host Alan Keller and I return for more Spinal Tap moments on Too Much Effing Perspective.
Although it would be as great as having armadillos in our trousers, this podcast is not affiliated with This Is Spinal Tap, and no person or entity connected with the film has sponsored or endorsed its content. This podcast is not affiliated, sponsored, or licensed by Authorized Spinal Tap LLC or Century of Progress Productions.
Too Much Effing Perspective is a Milwaukee Talkies original. Evergreen Podcast Network.